Hey guys, it's W here. Today I'm gonna test this old laptop here from 2016-2017. And today we're gonna see if this laptop can beat 2026 video games. Now, of course, it's a bit banged up. As you can see, the hinge is literally broken. Also, and the fact is, there is no battery in here. Okay, and also the second D drive is now outside because the cable literally just decided to give way and disintegrate. Now that this is turned on, let's check what are the specifications. So the first thing is, what is the CPU? The CPU is an i7-7700HQ from Intel. Now this computer, base clock speed is 2.8 gigahertz, right? And the turbo speed should be 3.82 gigahertz. Most computers back in the day that were made for gaming were using the i7-7700HQ. Now, the memory is 16 gigabytes. The max memory is 32 gigabytes. Okay? So, the disk drive, of course, we got a Kingston SSD of 1 terabyte. We also got another HDD from Hitachi of another 1 terabyte. Now, this is the integrated graphics card of this CPU, which is not great at all. It's an Intel HD Graphics 630. Now, what is the good GPU is that it is an NVIDIA GeForce GTX1050 dedicated graphics card. Now, this graphics card is, of course, of the 4GB variant. This is not the 2GB variant where some laptops did have back in the day. Of course, this one shared GPU memory could turn into 8GB of taking some memory from the RAM. And now it's time for some benchmarkings. We're gonna do some CS2 benchmarking is our first one. Now mind you here, even though if it looks like it's got good FPS, the graphics here isn't that great. It's on low graphical settings with VSync turned off. And also at times, this computer can go down to 40 FPS to 30 FPS. Now this is super common when you play the map Train, where you get 25 FPS to 30 FPS and sometimes 40 FPS. Now if you want to see how loud the computer gets, here it is. It's quite loud, isn't it? So as you can see over here, that our average FPS was 59.7, and our 1% low average was 32.4, and our 0.1% low average was 19.9, and our CPU power was usually at 20 watts minimum and average 21 watts and maximum 27 watts. Temperature of the CPU was 80, 84 and 95, and our GPU load was 82, 98 and 99, and our GPU temps was usually 75, 75 and 76. We're using the test city skylines in the medium city here. Here we were testing it with full speed at 3, and at this point we were getting about 32 FPS. And mind you here, we're testing it with low graphics settings at 1080p. The only time the computer lagged significantly was when I was opening icons to check what I can build. As you saw before, it took about 1 to 2 seconds to open the icon, and it isn't that game breaking. If you aren't worried about playing the game at 30 FPS, the game is quite playable. As you can see here, the average FPS was 32.7, about 33 FPS. And the 1% low average was 13.4. Now this game usually run at 95.6% smooth, and low FPS was 2.3%, and stuttering mode was 2.1%. Overall, the game is quite playable. So as you can see here, this is the CPU data of when we played the game City Skylines. So for CPU load percent, it was minimum at 20%, average at 36%, and max 57%. For the CPU temperature degrees Celsius, it was at minimum 72, average 86, and max 95. At this one, it was quite high because back then, laptops didn't really have that good of a cooling system as we do have today. So this is the GPU datasheet of when we played the game. So for GPU load percent, minimum was at 27, average at 32, and max at 46. This is very good actually, because this game is heavily dependent on the CPU. Now for GPU temperatures, degrees Celsius, minimum was at 50 degrees Celsius, average at 52, max also at 52. This is quite consistent and is very good. It didn't get that hot. Now, for GPU VRAM usage at gigabytes, it was 3.75 gigabytes at all, minimum, average, and max. This is very good. It didn't use too much VRAM. Now, for RAM usage, it was at minimum and average and max was all 8 gigabytes. So this is GTA 5, and let's go. The version of GTA we're playing today is GTA 5 Legacy on story mode. The graphics settings are high/very high on 1080 pixels. The average FPS we're getting today is 60 FPS and the 1% lows on 37 FPS. The only time that it will be 1% lows, it will be if I shoot too many cops and too many of them show up in the screen at the same time. As I said before, we're playing GTA 5 Legacy on high/very high graphics on 1080 pixels. If you tune down your graphics settings too high and medium, you would get better FPS, and the 1% lows may even reach 60 FPS. Overall, with any graphical settings on 1080p, either be high, very high, medium, or low, you can play this game quite well. This game is very playable on this computer. So here is the data of the FPS in the game. So the average FPS, like we said, was 60 FPS, and the 1% average was 37 FPS. And now we can see here there's a 0.1% low average of 19.4, but overall, as you can see here, it was 99.7% smooth and only 0.3% stuttering. Now this is the CPU data of when we played the game. For CPU load in percentage, minimum 26%, average 42%, and max 87%. For CPU temperature in degrees Celsius, it was minimum 77, average 86, and a very high max 98, which is almost 100 degrees Celsius, which is not good. The max temperature being 98 degrees Celsius and the average being 86 degrees Celsius here is very bad, because at 100 degrees Celsius the computer will shut itself down, and also at prolonged times of 98 or anything nearby 100 degrees Celsius can damage your components inside your computer, and also in the end you may lose some data. The reason why you can get data loss is because the computer will turn itself off at 100 degrees Celsius, and the main reason that it turns itself off is not to save data, is to save itself from decreasing temperatures. Now the second option is that if it prolongs at 100 degrees Celsius, 98 degrees Celsius, or anyone nearby 100 degrees Celsius, it could actually destroy the SSD from that much heat in the computer. This is the GPU and RAM datasheet of when we played the game. So for GPU load percent, minimum at 9, average at 68, max at 99%, and for GPU temperatures in degrees Celsius was minimum 57, average 63, and max 68. This is a lot better, and I mean it, by far, a lot better than the CPU temperatures, where at max we could see a 98 degrees Celsius. Now for GPU VRAM, remember in gigabytes we have 4 gigabytes of VRAM, so this was quite high for the GPU, using about 3.06 to 3.12 gigabytes of RAM. Now for RAM in the computer at gigabytes, it was using consistently of 2.7 gigabytes of RAM. So in conclusion, did this laptop beat 2026 in video games? Yes, it did. It beat all of our tests that we tested today. Now, should you go and buy one of these laptops in 2026 if you find it fully functioning and working, not like the one I have over here? In my opinion, no. It's over 10 years old. But if you don't have much of the money, you can go and buy one and put Linux on it, or Windows 11 IoT. But if you were thinking to put Windows 11 normal operating system on it, you can't, because it's an i7-7700HQ and it doesn't have the requirements to run Windows 11. Now, if you're getting this computer for future-proofing and playing games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Borderlands 4, please don't, because this computer has only a 1050 4GB edition, and also it's got a i7-7700HQ, so it isn't very good for that.